The story begins as a powerful exorcist lies dying on the ground on a dark, terrible night. In his final moments, he thinks back on his life, remembering how he spent all his years chasing power, believing that as long as he was strong, nothing could ever be taken from him. He recalls summoning powerful Ayakashi monsters to serve him and becoming the strongest exorcist in all of history. But the imperial court he once served turned against him, taking his students hostage and sending his own favorite disciple to kill him. He gently tells the student standing over him that it isn't her fault, and bitterly admits that what he truly lacked was never power, but cunning. Vowing to start over and never make the same mistake again, he takes his final breath. He is then reborn into a whole new world, and we see a nobleman named Blaise Lamperouge performing a ritual on his baby son, calling on the spirits of fire, water, earth, wind, light, and shadow to reveal the child's magic. But not a single element stone lights up, and the room goes silent. The father coldly declares the ritual over and announces that the boy has no magical power at all, while his brother sneers that he's an embarrassment. The child is Seika Lamperouge, the third son of a respected clan of mages, though his mother was only a mistress, which leaves him ignored and alone from the very start. Seika, however, is no ordinary baby, since he still carries the soul of the strongest exorcist. He realizes that while this new body has no magic, it holds an enormous amount of spiritual power, which is all he needs to use his old techniques. He folds a simple leaf and turns it into a shikigami, a paper servant he can send out to secretly learn about this strange new world. Soon after, his older brother Gly shoves him around and calls him a loser, but a flock of crows suddenly bursts out and drives the boy away. Seika calmly notes how suspicious it looks that he was the only one the crows didn't attack. As the years pass, Seika keeps his head down and quietly studies everything about this land, learning that it's far larger, more advanced, and more peaceful than the world he came from. He turns 7, but because he's only the son of a mistress, there's no celebration for him, and most people simply leave him alone. The one exception is a kind servant girl named Ifa, who runs up to return a jacket he lost in the bushes. Before he can even thank her, Gly appears and barks at her to get back to work, treating her like a slave. Seika watches quietly, already seeing that this gentle girl is the only person who treats him like a human being. Gly then brags that he's headed for a famous magic academy, and mocks Seika, saying the best a powerless failure like him can hope for is the army. Their father interrupts and calls Gly away for a magic lesson, and Seika quietly asks to come along and watch. Outside, the father teaches Gly a wind spell, and Gly proudly fires off a clumsy fireball with a long incantation. Then, to put his little brother in his place, Gly shoves a wand at Seika and dares him to try. Seika hesitates, since he once swore he'd never reveal his true power again, but with everyone watching, he finally gives in. He quietly chants and unleashes a bright blue flame with no incantation at all, a fire so strong and strange that it stuns the entire family. His father stares in shock, admitting that a rare few can use magic without being born with it, but he still forbids Seika from studying it, insisting a magicless child could never become a real mage. He does agree to give him a private tutor, then coldly warns him not to get cocky. Years later, at the age of 11, Seika is finally ready to summon his very first Ayakashi from his past life. He explains that sealing a monster means banishing it to another plane, which isn't so different from another world, so as long as he prepares a proper doorway, he can call one through. He performs the ritual and summons a spirit called a Kidajitsune, and a small fox girl named Yuki appears, thrilled to see him again. Yuki was a beautiful woman in his last life, but now she takes the form of a little girl, which she guesses is due to his young body or the nature of this new world. Seika is happy to see her too, but reminds her to stay hidden and tells her that he goes by Seika now, not the name she once knew. Delighted, Yuki happily agrees to stay by his side. Not long after, Gly corners Ifa again, splashing water on his own clothes and cruelly ordering her to come to his room that night to be taught her place as a slave. Seika steps in and shuts it down, quietly telling Ifa she doesn't have to go anywhere. Grateful, Ifa then asks for his help with something she found, and leads him to a wounded baby monster called a carbuncle, whose mother was killed by crows. Seika asks her to turn around, then uses a healing spell to mend the little creature, leaving Ifa amazed that he can use magic like his brothers. Ifa admits that she's special too, revealing that she can see the spirits and elementals that most people can't. She explains that these elementals gather around anything Seika owns, yet they strangely avoid him personally, almost as if they're afraid of him. She's even able to command them, which is how she found his lost jacket, So Seika tests her by having her banish a floating spirit, and she does it easily. He's thrilled, since this is a rare talent he chased for years in his past life, and he decides to secretly train her as a valuable ally. Finally, Seika turns 12, but as always there's no feast and no presents, and his father doesn't even show up. This time his brothers offer to train him with a sword, since without magic his only future is the army. Before they can begin, panic erupts as a massive monster called an elder newt approaches the mansion, and everyone rushes to lock the windows and hide. In the chaos, Aoife is nearly caught by the beast, but the spirits around her move on their own to shield her, proving that her power is real. Then Seika steps forward to face the enormous monster himself, and with a single poison flame spell, he wipes it out in one devastating attack. The servants stare in disbelief that a boy with no magic just destroyed a monster even veterans would fear, and word of Master Seika's strength quickly spreads. But Seika only smiles to himself, satisfied that everything went exactly as he planned, and quietly vows that in this life, he'll finally be cunning. The episode picks up right after Seika's stunning victory over the Elder Newt, and that evening the family enjoys a warm dinner in his honor. His father praises him, admitting that even a veteran adventurer would have struggled with that monster, and curiously asks how he knew it was weak to fire. Seika calmly says he read about it in a book, and his father, impressed, offers him a reward for his bravery. Seizing the moment, Seika asks to be allowed to enroll in the famous Lodonia Magic Academy, and his father agrees, but only if he passes the entrance exam on his own. Seika then makes a second request, asking that the servant girl Aoife be allowed to come with him. His father refuses at first, insisting a girl with no magical talent would be useless, so Seika quietly tells Aoife to cast the biggest fireball she can. To everyone's shock, Aoife unleashes a powerful mid-rank spell that lights up the room, and the stunned father finally agrees to let her go. This news infuriates GLY, who protests that their clan has never allowed two brothers to follow the same path, and reminds everyone that he is the one meant for the academy. Their father coldly points out that GLY has wasted years playing around instead of improving himself, and decides that GLY will join the army instead. Desperate and humiliated, GLY challenges Seika to a duel, declaring that the winner goes to the academy and the loser must leave home forever. Their father accepts and sets the duel for noon the next day, with strict rules forbidding real swords or powerful magic. That night, before the duel, Seika's kind older brother Luft quietly visits his room to give him a late birthday gift, a beautiful glass pen. Luft apologizes for never being kind to him, says he's proud of how much he's grown, and asks him to go easy on GLY. Seika gently agrees, but GLY is too impatient to wait, and he bursts into Seika's room that same night to settle the score. Ignoring all the rules, he hurls fireballs and wind spells one after another, sneering that Seika only won against the monster through dumb luck. Seika effortlessly shrugs off every attack, raising a barrier and turning the spells aside with ease. With a single command, he forbids GLY from moving, freezing him in place, then gently breaks his arm to end the fight without truly harming him. Terrified, GLY surrenders and agrees to forfeit in the morning. Afterward, Yuki asks if it's really safe to leave GLY alive, and Seika says he made a promise to Luft. It's here that the truth comes out, as Seika reveals the Elder Newt attack was never an accident at all. He secretly summoned another Ayakashi named Bonze and ordered it to drive the monster toward the city, staging the whole crisis so he could look like a hero and earn his place at the academy. When Yuki wonders why someone so powerful would bother with such a roundabout scheme, Seika reminds her that in his last life, he was killed by the very same weak humans he now lives among. This time, he says, he only wants to blend in as one of the powerless masses, stay smart, and never fail again. When spring arrives, Seika and Aoife finally set off for the academy, seen off by Luft, who tells Seika to keep her safe. As a parting gift, Seika gives Aoife a bracelet made of magic stones to draw the elementals to her and help her grow stronger. The long carriage ride immediately reveals Seika's one great weakness, terrible motion sickness, which leaves him miserable for the entire 7-day journey. Meanwhile, back home, his father sits alone and reflects on the mystery of his youngest son. He remembers his own missing brother, Gilbert, an adventurer who vanished in demon territory, and recalls how Seika was born with rare black hair and eyes and used strange powers as a child. He admits he's never been sure whether the boy will grow into a hero who protects the nation or a demon king who destroys it. When Seika and Aoife finally reach the academy, Seika instantly senses something wrong, a strange, stagnating pool of dark magic hanging over the whole school. He files it away for later as they line up to register. A magic crystal measures each student's power, and it confirms that Ifa has only a little fire and wind aptitude, while Seika, as expected, registers no magical power at all. The noble children around them sneer and whisper that a slave and a powerless failure have no business enrolling. But then a red-haired commoner girl named Amu places her hand on the crystal, and it blazes with the light of all four elements at once, silencing the entire room. When the nobles keep mocking Seika and Ifa, Amu snaps at them to be quiet, though she coldly insists she didn't do it to defend anyone. She just found them annoying. She warns Seika that there's no place here for someone with no magical power and tells him to stay out of her way. But Seika barely hears the insult, because he's just realized something incredible. Despite her different hair color, this girl is someone he knew very well in his previous life. Far away, a shadowy figure gives a chilling order to a demon named Gallios, telling him simply to crush the hero. With the written exam behind them, the students move on to the practical test, where they must strike a row of targets using magic for each element. Most of them can only manage a single element with long, clumsy incantations, so the examiners aren't impressed. Then Ifa steps up and blasts a fire-resistant target with a powerful mid-rank spell and no incantation at all, before moving on to shatter a second target with wind magic. Watching her, Seika is so moved by how far she's grown that he nearly cries, though he stubbornly denies it. When it's Seika's turn, the crowd expects nothing from the magicless boy, but he calmly produces his eerie blue fireball. He then shatters a granite target with a strange spell that crystallizes the stone and freezes another solid with an ice waterfall. When the examiners demand to know what spells he used, he can only shrug and say it was something like stone, then politely bows out, explaining he can only really use 3 elements. Afterward, the teachers gather in disbelief, and the instructor Karen reveals the real story is Amu, the commoner who destroyed the targets for every single element. Karen quietly voices her suspicion that Amu might be the legendary hero, the warrior said to be born whenever the Demon King is about to revive. When the results are posted, Amu takes first place, Ifa surprises everyone by ranking second, and Seika lands in third, exactly where his perfect written score and careful restraint placed him. Soon after, they attend the grand entrance ceremony, but as they head inside, Seika notices something deeply wrong, a sinister magic circle radiating a bad feeling and drawing dark elementals. Since it clearly belongs to the school, he decides not to meddle with it for now. Inside the hall, Amu gives the new student speech, declaring she came only to grow stronger and protect her comrades, when Seika suddenly senses a demonic presence closing in. The doors burst open and lesser demons flood into the hall, sending students screaming and scrambling to escape. Seika immediately notices the monsters are slow and clumsy, more like a decoy than a real attack, so he tells Ifa to run if things get dangerous, because he has a job to do. Slipping away, he confronts the true mastermind, a powerful metal devil named Gull Gallios who is hunting for something inside the school. Gallios is stunned that a mere human child can see through his invisible attacks and teleportation, and grows even more unsettled when Seika calmly recites a poem in the middle of battle, a strange habit left over from his old master. Gallios reveals that he came searching for the hero from the old prophecy, a red-haired girl with inhuman power, and boasts that he found her tonight. When he mentions her, Seika accidentally lets Amu's name slip, which delights the devil, since it makes his hunt so much easier. Furious, Seika presses the attack, sealing away Gallios' summoned servants and redirecting his blades with teleportation magic. When the devil brags that he can come back to life, Seika counters that he's already set a spell to erase anything that doesn't belong, keeping him from healing. The battle escalates as Gallios soaks Seika with a waterfall and follows up with a summoned lightning beast, certain he's finished him, only for Seika to reappear behind him completely untouched. Seika then unleashes a spell of ashen flowers, using the way salt reacts violently with water to tear through the metal devil's defenses, and coldly lectures him for never bothering to study the true nature of magic. As a final blow, Seika summons a massive water dragon called Mizuchi, a creature so terrifying that Gallios gasps that not even the Demon King could summon a true dragon. Moments later, the devil is utterly destroyed, though Seika notes with mild frustration that his young body still can't fully control such powerful servants. Yuki reappears, having hidden during the fight, and teases him for the dramatic poem he recited mid-battle. Seika returns to find Ifa safe, and learns that Amu single-handedly wiped out every last one of the lesser demons on her own, proving just how powerful the hero truly is. Watching her, Seika lays out the cold logic behind his entire plan. He explains the painful lesson from his last life, that no matter how strong you are, the people around you will eventually drag you down and crush you. That's why he refuses to be the strongest this time, and instead needs someone else to hold that dangerous title in his place, someone like the hero. His plan is simple, to become Amu's trusted friend and live safely in her shadow, even knowing she might be crushed in the end. He tells himself he might feel a little sad if that happens, but that's all, because this time he's finally determined to be happy. Yet his kindness slips through anyway, as he quietly vows that even if the demons return, he'll make Amu the strongest hero there is, and beat this so-called demon king himself if he has to. A month after the demon attack, Seika begins working on his simple plan to make friends with someone powerful and reap the benefits. He cheerfully greets Amu every morning, only to be told flatly to never speak to him again, which leaves him realizing he has no idea how to actually make a friend. His awkward efforts are cut short when he crashes into a floating vat of foul-smelling liquid belonging to an eccentric researcher named Cordell, a light magic specialist who explains it's a catalyst for his experiments. Soon after, their teacher Karen announces that the school's top 2 students, Amu and Ifa, will be honored with delivering the new student roster at a temple deep in Lodonia Forest. Recognizing the forest as the demon Galios's old base, Seika gets a bad feeling and quietly tells Ifa to refuse, then volunteers to take her place. When Ifa realizes he's doing this to protect Amu, whose heroics have made her more enemies than friends, she admits she wants to be strong and admired someday too, and happily agrees to help. On the day of the ceremony, Seika and Amu deliver the roster, but a hidden magic circle suddenly activates beneath them and teleports the pair deep underground into a dark dungeon. As they fight their way through, Amu is amazed by Seika's strange spells, which he casually explains away as secret Lamprobe clan techniques. Realizing that no help will ever come for anyone trapped in a dungeon, Seika uses his Shikigami on the surface to pinpoint their location and search for an exit, all while calmly holding off waves of monsters. During a quiet moment, he notices Amu suffering from a chronic headache, and after a barrier instantly relieves it, he realizes she's been struck by a remotely cast curse. He explains he can transfer the curse into a paper substitute using a strand of her hair, and as they wait, the two finally open up to each other. Amu confesses that she loves fighting more than anything, that her feelings of fear and pain feel broken, and that her fellow adventurers once called her a crazy battle addict after half their party died. She admits she came to the academy to get stronger and to escape the guild, hoping that if she grew stronger than everyone, fighting would finally lose its thrill and she could feel normal. Instead of judging her, Seika gently tells her she isn't a freak at all, but someone born for a world at war that simply hasn't arrived yet. His words visibly move her, and for the first time Amu lowers her guard and begins to see him as someone she can trust. Their bond deepens as they reach the dungeon's boss, a massive serpent called a Naga, and though Seika already found the exit and could escape at any time, he chooses to fight it beside her to give her real experience. Working in perfect harmony, the two combine their spells and take the monster down together, and an overjoyed Amu declares they make a great team. In the treasure left behind, they find a mithril sword, which Seika gives to Amu, and a mysterious ring humming with power, which he quietly pockets. Before they leave, the two make a promise that once they become adventurers someday, they'll go on another adventure together. After escaping, Seika tells the teachers everything except his own secrets and Amu's curse, leaving the staff baffled, since they never knew a dungeon existed beneath the temple and the magic circle has already vanished. But Seika already knows the culprit, because his Shikigami detected a rare pollen on the researcher Cordell from a flower that only grows near the hidden circle. He pays Cordell a visit and calmly returns the evidence, and the man drops his friendly act entirely. Cordell reveals that he's a human spy working for the demons, and that his goal was to assassinate the hero using a revolutionary curse of his own design. He proudly boasts that his curse uses light magic to kill a target slowly from any distance, disguising the death as an ordinary illness, and since Seika interfered, he decides the boy must die. But Seika calmly reveals the fatal flaw in his plan, that the curse was set to target anyone bathed in demon blood, and Amu was covered in it during the earlier battle. Now that he knows the exact conditions, Seika turns the entire curse back onto its creator with a summoned demon and an ancient chant. As Cordell collapses in disbelief, Seika reminds him of an old saying, that he who curses someone must dig 2 graves, and coldly notes that curses happen to be his specialty. With the threat quietly eliminated, Seika finally gets a taste of the normal school life he wanted. He gives Ifa the strange ring from the dungeon, which turns out to draw elementals to her exactly as he hoped, growing her power, and she promises to treasure it. Best of all, in a small victory that pleases him most, Amyu and Ifa strike up a genuine friendship, leaving Seika blinking in confusion over exactly when the two girls became so close. As their second year begins, life at the academy is peaceful, since Seika's secret wards have kept the demons away. That calm breaks when the vice principal summons Seika and Ifa to the principal's office, sparking jokes from Amyu that he's finally about to be expelled. To their surprise, the principal turns out to be an ancient demi-human, who takes one look at Seika and remarks that he's clearly seen a great deal. She reveals she once knew his missing uncle, then gets to the point, asking him to enter a prestigious combat tournament in the capital alongside a brand-new transfer student named Mabel Crane. The principal explains that the tournament now allows magic for the first time, which is why the academy was invited, and she wants to use it to raise the school's reputation. She adds that the winner earns prize money and a spot in the Royal Guard, though Seika has no interest in the Guard and is far more curious about her real motive. When word gets out, Amyu is furious she wasn't chosen, since she's the best with a sword, but she also admits she's mellowed and has no desire to fight people rather than monsters. Soon the sharp-tongued Mabel confronts her, coldly calling her spoiled and weak, which quickly escalates into a practice duel. To everyone's shock, Mabel matches Amyu blow for blow and secretly slips in a flash of dark gravity magic, revealing she's far more dangerous than she looks. Mabel warns them that this won't be a tournament where nobody gets hurt, and tells them to forfeit now if they aren't serious. Not long after, Seika finds himself in a carriage bound for the capital with Mabel, only for Amyu and Ifa to reveal they've tagged along too, mostly because Amyu is dying to see how Mabel fights. The long ride once again leaves Seika violently carriage sick, and he wrongly guesses that Mabel is just some noble's pawn who will forfeit early to avoid getting hurt. When they reach the bustling capital, Mabel slips away without a word, and Seika drags himself to the tournament board to study the brackets. He notes with interest that if both he and Mabel win, they'll face each other in the semifinals, and finds it strange the organizers would pit two academy students against one another so early. He sends the others off to explore, and while Ifa promises to buy him food, he quietly blankets the city with his Shikigami to investigate why the academy really sent him. The more he learns, the more convinced he becomes that this is no simple sporting event, and that dangerous hidden fighters have been drawn here from who knows where. The tournament finally begins, with the rule that a competitor loses if they're incapacitated, knocked from the ring, or have their protective amulet shattered. Seika is called up first against a brutal, disowned noble turned mercenary named Dennis, a pure swordsman who boasts he can kill 10 mages before one finishes chanting. Complaining that his head hurts, Seika ends the match in a single instant, dodging the charge faster than the eye can follow and blasting the man away with an internal release spell. He wins before the crowd or the announcer even understand what happened, leaving a relieved Ifa cheering and a bored Amyu grumbling that his fights end too quickly. Watching from the stands, Yuki quietly warns Seika that he's been getting careless and using far too many Shikigami at once, but he insists the information he's gathering matters even more than the tournament. Soon a chilling, silent fighter named Kyle takes the stage, a strange man with an unsettling appearance whose true nature is a mystery. His terrified opponent slowly approaches, face twisting in fear, yet finds himself completely unable to move a single muscle, and is cut down without landing a single blow. The bloodthirsty crowd erupts in cheers at the tournament's first fatality, while Kyle's blank expression never so much as flickers. Seika is disturbed by how eagerly the crowd celebrates a death, realizing that even in this world, people love to watch others suffer. Studying Kyle closely, he recognizes exactly what he's dealing with, a veteran killer and a bearer of the evil eye, a caster who pours his spiritual power into his gaze to curse and paralyze anyone he looks at. He realizes this tournament is quietly drawing in dangerous, hidden players from who knows where, and that there's far more at stake than prize money or glory. With Mabel's secret gravity magic, Kyle's deadly evil eye, and the Academy's mysterious motives all swirling together, Seika senses that the real game has only just begun. The tournament pushes into its second round, where Seika faces a puppeteer named Labonaire, who proudly sends out a golem specially built to counter magic and demands he surrender. Seika simply summons a wind spirit called a sickle weasel that tears the golem apart in an instant, and the terrified puppeteer forfeits on the spot. Afterward, Seika privately admits to Yuki that the match was actually risky, not because of the golem, but because summoners are banned from the tournament, and using an Ayakashi could have gotten him disqualified. Back in the stands, a worried Ifa greets him, having wanted him to forfeit ever since she saw the deadly Kyle fight, but Seika reassures her he's unharmed. Their attention turns to Mabel's second match against a powerful earth mage named Howlo, which she wins with breathtaking skill. Seika immediately reads her technique, realizing she uses gravity magic to make her rapiers and daggers dozens of times heavier the instant before they strike, all without any incantation. When the announcer calls her a red-haired hero, Yuki explains that the second hero in history was also named Mabel and used the very same weapons, which is why the crowd draws the comparison. Sensing a deeper plot, Seika ambushes a suspicious tournament official he suspects is a demon spy, binding him with vines when the man tries to flee. When the spy refuses to talk and dares Seika to torture him, Seika calmly replies that he'll simply ask the man's soul instead. He summons a horrifying mind-reading Ayakashi called Satori, which terrifies the spy by speaking his own private thoughts aloud, leaving him no way to lie. One by one his secrets spill out, revealing that the demons are desperately searching for the hero and have fixed on Mabel because her age, sex, hair color, and strength all match the prophecy. Crucially, the spy admits the demons lost track of the true hero after their scout and assassin both vanished, the very demons Seika himself quietly killed. With his answers extracted, Seika rewards Satori by letting it devour the doomed spy, telling himself it was too dangerous to let him live, though a frightened Ifa catches a glimpse of the aftermath. Piecing it all together, Seika realizes the Academy's plan is to prop up Mabel as a fake hero to draw the demon's attention, keeping the real hero, Amu, safely hidden. He decides not to investigate Mabel's origins as long as her presence keeps his friends safe. As the tournament rolls on, the deadly Kyle keeps winning with terrifying ease, while a skilled young knight named Reina's advances by mastering all four elements. Seika breezes through his own matches too, and several fighters grow so afraid of the killers in the bracket that they simply forfeit, leaving the crowd angry that fight after fight gets cancelled. When Seika crosses paths with Mabel, she urgently tells him to forfeit, insisting this tournament is not what he thinks it is, but he refuses, saying if she wants the finals, she'll have to beat him fair and square. Mabel warns him she's stronger than anyone he's faced and may not be able to hold back. The semi-final between Reina's and Kyle proves a spectacle, as Reina's cleverly buffs himself with light magic to resist the evil eye. Forced to adapt, Kyle reveals he's no simple swordsman, countering with gravity magic and then stabbing his own shadow into his opponents to freeze him in place, exactly the way Seika's own arts work. Kyle wins and advances to the finals, while Seika watches in quiet recognition, certain this killer is something far stranger than a hired blade. That night, Yuki playfully begs to sleep beside Seika in her human form, since she hasn't taken that shape in ages, and the two share a rare, tender moment. But their peace shatters when Mabel breaks into his room and attacks without warning, forcing Seika to bind her with vines and defend himself with a burst of internal release magic. He recognizes just how strong and serious she is, and coldly notes that if she's truly come to take his life, it would be dangerous to simply let her leave. Rather than turn her away, though, Seika makes a quiet decision, choosing to let the troubled girl who came all the way to his room stay the night, sensing the heavy secret weighing her down. The night before the finals, Seika sits down with the troubled Mabel and gently draws out the tragic truth she's been carrying. She admits that both she and Kyle were slave children raised into killers by the Rugrock Merchants Association, and that her real role in this tournament was to be killed by Kyle so the demons would believe the hero had died. She describes the association's monstrous training, where children are placed in groups of 4, taught to care for one another, and then forced to murder their 3 closest friends to become an emotionless perfect soldier. Seika reveals he already knows Kyle is her brother and that her red hair is dyed, and that her true goal isn't survival at all. Breaking down, Mabel confesses that before the surgery stole his heart, her brother begged her to set him free if he ever stopped being himself, and she means to keep that promise by killing him in the finals. She insists there's nothing left for her, since the association will kill her whether she wins or runs. Moved by her pain, Seika changes his mind on the spot and declares he'll defeat Kyle himself, telling her there's no need for her to die. When she lashes out that he could never understand, he calmly promises that as long as he's there, no one will touch her, because he's the strongest. He tells her that if her brother truly wants anything, it isn't death, but for his sister to be free, and though she still vows to use her full power, a fragile bit of hope returns to her. In the semi-final, Mabel comes at Seika with everything she has, layering gravity magic to make her weapons 1,000 times heavier, but he counters her every move with mercury binding vines and clever phase magic. He explains he isn't trying to hurt her, only to win, and takes the match by the judge's decision, sending himself to the finals in her place. The final match then pits Seika against Kyle, and Seika opens by telling him plainly that Mabel is alive, only for the Hollow Killer to reply that this means he can finally kill her as ordered. Determined to reach the brother buried inside, Seika blankets the arena in total darkness, tests him with mercury vines, and summons a monstrous minotaur like Ayakashi to force a single flicker of fear into him. Seika tells Kyle that losing all fear didn't make him a perfect warrior, but a broken one, and though he holds back and chooses to leave him alive, Kyle has one last move. In a final act of will, Kyle turns his own curse inward to kill himself, choosing death over being forced to murder his sister, and asks Seika to apologize to Mabel for him. Refusing to let it end this way, Seika decides to use the forbidden power he swore to hide, declaring that as the strongest sorcerer of his past life, he can bring the dead back to life, and begins a resurrection rite. Yuki desperately reminds him that this is the exact kind of thing that got him killed before, but he won't stop, and she finally understands that he's simply kinder than anyone else. With the tournament over, Seika covers his tracks by claiming he destroyed Kyle without a trace, politely declines the royal guard, and quietly keeps only the prize money. He returns Kyle's body so it can be buried, and gives Mabel the message her brother left behind, an apology about a 4-leaf clover hairpin he once broke. That tiny, tender memory finally lets Mabel grieve the brother she lost long ago, admitting she'd already given up on ever saying goodbye. Back at the academy, Seika meets privately with the principal, who confirms Mabel was always meant to be the decoy hiding Amu, and that the merchants saw both siblings as disposable tools. She reveals she expanded the academy's slots just to send Seika, hoping her trump card could save the girl, and when Seika asks her age, she smugly says she stopped counting after 300. The episode ends on a warmer note, as Seika returns to the school and tells Amu and Ifa most of what happened, carefully leaving out the truth about the hero. Amu immediately demands a rematch, and this time Seika beats her with a clever trick, cheekily reminding her that on a real battlefield, anything goes. He gently calls out that Mabel never just wanted to save her brother, she wanted to prove she was stronger than him too, and offers to become her training partner so she has a reason to keep pushing forward. Mabel enrolls at the academy as a first year held back a grade, and as Seika insists she study hard, Amu drags her into duels, and Ifa cheerfully offers to help, leaving the once lonely killer finally surrounded by friends. As summer break approaches, Seika is handed an official task to investigate a dragon in the neighboring kingdom of Asteria in his busy father's place. He decides to bring Ifa along and tells Amu and Mabel to go home to their families, leaving the two girls sulking. To his surprise, the person who came to meet him is Asteria's crown prince himself, a cheerful and impulsive young man named Cecilio. The prince is instantly smitten with Ifa, praising her beauty and bluntly asking her to join his royal harem, which leaves the poor girl stammering that she's only a slave and Seika's servant. When Cecilio offers to buy her for any price, his level-headed attendant Lisa quickly steps in to move things along. Cecilio explains the situation, that Asteria's dragon has lived in harmony with its people for over a century, once even fighting alongside their ancestors, and was said in legend to be hatched from an egg by an ancient queen. But over the past year the dragon has begun acting strangely, attacking crops and cattle, and the damage is steadily getting worse. He asks Seika to investigate both the dragon's behavior and the truth behind the old legends. Along the 9-day carriage ride, Seika suffers his usual crippling motion sickness, while Ifa quietly wrestles with new feelings, especially as the prince keeps showering her with attention. Seika, oblivious as ever, casually tells her that joining a royal harem wouldn't be a bad deal since it's a great honor, which only confuses and hurts her. When they finally reach the old capital of Protoster, they find a beautiful city living in fear of the dragon that once protected it. Their arrival nearly turns deadly when the dragon swoops down and attacks, only for a mercenary named Zek to drive it off by summoning a fiery lava tiger. In the chaos, Seika quietly saves everyone with a transparent earth barrier, but Zek only bristles, snapping that he didn't need help. It turns out Zek leads a mercenary band that Cecilio hired to slay the dragon, and he's openly hostile towards Seika, warning him to keep his summoned beasts out of sight and threatening to blast the dragon into ash. Cecilio scolds the mercenary for his rudeness, while Seika politely apologizes and quietly sizes up just how untrustworthy this hired blade really is. Seika warns the prince that killing the dragon is a terrible idea, since the size difference makes it nearly impossible and a wounded dragon could flee to attack another country. But Cecilio, desperate to prove himself, refuses to listen. That night, Seika turns his sharp attention to Ifa, coldly scolding her for freezing up during the attack instead of using her magic to protect herself. He reminds her that he won't always be there to save her, and that whatever she does, she must never simply stand still. Privately, he admits he only pushes her so hard because of a scar from his own past, when he once watched a fellow student get devoured while everyone stood frozen in terror, and he refuses to let Ifa share that fate. To find the truth, Seika and Ifa dig through old records in the library, where Seika's ability to read the ancient language reveals a striking pattern from a century and a half ago. The books describe how the original male dragon was once joined by a female, how the pair grew hostile and attacked cattle right after having children, and how they calmed again once those children left the nest. The female later died a natural death 100 years ago, leaving only the male behind. Ifa marvels that Seika can even read the ancient language, and he explains he taught himself back in the library at home, but the puzzle nags at him, since a lone male dragon shouldn't be behaving exactly like a nesting parent. Determined to see the dragon up close, Seika announces he'll climb the mountain where it lives, insisting he won't fight it and will simply flee if discovered, and firmly tells a worried Ifa to stay behind. When the prince tries to summon Ifa for a private talk that evening, Seika heads him off and instead shares a quiet, tender night with her, even letting her share his bed since she's frightened to be alone. He gently asks how she really feels about the prince's harem offer, telling her she's free to choose her own path, and though it clearly pains him, he admits he'd only miss her if she left. The next morning, Seika sets off up the mountain alone, and while he's gone, Cecilio's shrewd attendant Lisa approaches Ifa with a startling revelation. She tells Ifa that she is a descendant of the elves, which is why the elementals answer to her, and urges her to leave her master and join the harem. Then Lisa drops a chilling warning that plants a seed of doubt in Ifa's heart, insisting that the boy she's devoted her life to, Seika, is a monster. As the episode ends, Ifa is left shaken, forced to wonder whether the person she trusts most in the world is far more dangerous than she ever imagined. The episode opens on Lisa pressing her unsettling claim, insisting the elementals avoid Seika the same way they flee a demon's miasma, and that no one can even be sure his mother was human. Ifa fiercely defends him, saying she grew up with Seika and believes with all her heart that he's human, but Lisa coldly replies that believing is just another word for refusing to think. High on the mountain, meanwhile, Seika comes face to face with the dragon and gently subdues it with a heavy ayakashi and an asbestos net, careful not to damage its wings. Examining it closely, he confirms his theory in a stunning way. The dragon is male, yet it has laid an egg, because after its mate died it slowly changed from male to female, just as certain fish and reptiles do. He realizes the creature has only been attacking cattle to feed itself while guarding its nest, and he even ends up helping care for the egg, patiently turning it, which finally makes the legend of a queen hatching a dragon feel real. Back at the palace, Ifa tours the harem and learns it's far more than a place of royal wives, functioning almost like an academy for future queens. Lisa explains that the current queen, the prince's mother, is a wise and beloved ruler, and that Cecilio is terrified he'll never live up to her, which is why he's so desperate to win glory and find a wife. But the tour turns into a trap when Cecilio suddenly produces liberation paperwork, declaring he'll free Ifa from slavery himself and pay any price. Ifa refuses again and again, bravely declaring that even as a slave she has the right to decide her own life, and that she chooses to stay with Seika, but the prince orders his guards to force her thumbprint onto the documents. Just as the guards close in, Seika crashes through the ceiling riding on the back of the very dragon everyone feared, making the grandest possible entrance. He cheerfully announces that he's befriended the dragon, that it now lets him ride it, and casually asks for someone who can use fire magic to help warm its egg, holding out his hand to Ifa. Without hesitation she runs to him, tearfully rejecting the prince and declaring in front of everyone that she really likes Seika, as the two soar off into the sky together. Flying to the dragon's mountain nest, Seika shows Ifa the egg, but their tender moment is interrupted by the mercenary Zekt, who reveals his true plan. He was never hired to protect anyone and was after the valuable dragon egg all along, and he mocks the foolish prince who believed his lies before moving to kill them both. But this time Ifa doesn't freeze. Remembering Seika's harsh lesson, she takes action and defends herself with water magic, and when Zekt threatens to blow up the entire mountain, she douses his spellbook to cut off his casting. Seika finishes the fight in an instant, incinerating the lava tiger with white flames, coldly introducing himself as the world's strongest sorcerer and binding Zect and his men. He turns to Ifa and proudly tells her she did exactly what he taught her. With the truth exposed, Seika lays it all out for the prince, explaining the dragon only turned violent because it was protecting an egg, and that the old legend was real, since the dragon saw the royal family as its parents and kept the capital safe for centuries. He urges Cecilio to repay that ancient bond by helping the egg hatch, so the dragon and the people can be a family once more. But the desperate prince refuses, demanding instead that Seika simply kill the dragon so he can claim the glory himself. When Seika flatly refuses, the prince childishly orders his arrest and once again tries to seize Ifa, finally making Seika lose his patience. He tears into the prince for chasing glory and women instead of doing his actual job, going a little too far before Lisa steps in to end the farce. When Ifa is at last allowed to speak for herself, she firmly rejects the prince's offer, declaring she's returning to the academy with Seika no matter what. The prince accepts his defeat gracefully, apologizing to Seika and thanking him for uncovering the truth, and Lisa privately blesses Ifa, comparing her to the compassionate elf princess of the old fairy tales who once took pity on the demon king. On the road home, Ifa quietly grapples with everything she's learned, from her elven heritage to Lisa's dark warning. Yet she chooses her master over every doubt, deciding it simply doesn't matter what he is because she trusts him completely. When Seika idly asks what kind of person she'd want to marry, she describes someone smart, strong, kind, and a little lonely, unknowingly painting a portrait of Seika himself, though he obliviously tells her she's setting the bar too high. Far away, meanwhile, a new and powerful demon party carves a bloody path toward the Empire, cutting down anyone in their way. Their captain possesses a rare gift, the power to see the exact strength of any living being, and he leads a fearsome group that includes the mighty ogre Mutarev and a gentle-hearted tamer whose monsters devour their enemies. Though some of them are chillingly cruel and others surprisingly kind, they're all bound by a single mission, to defeat the hero for the sake of all demons, and the captain silently vows to fulfill it even at the cost of his life. The storm gathering around Amu grows darker and closer than ever, and none of them have any idea of the true horror waiting to meet them. The new term brings a surprise when Seika invites Amu and Mabel to visit his family home over spring break, explaining that his father wants to meet the swordswoman who can wield all four elements. Amu happily agrees, and Mabel comes along too, though Seika admits he isn't looking forward to it, since an important guest is staying at the mansion and it's really them she wants to meet. After another carriage-sick journey, Seika is welcomed home by his kind brother Luft, who's amazed at how much he's grown. The reunion turns tense when his middle brother Gly storms in, now a soldier who has come to genuinely enjoy army life, and immediately demands the duel he's been waiting years for. Before Seika can respond, Amu offers to fight in his place, and Gly, underestimating her, agrees that if he wins, he'll then face Seika. The duel is over almost instantly, as Amu tricks the arrogant Gly and defeats him with a single clever move, leaving him sputtering that she cheated. Humiliated, he turns his demand back on Seika, but the confrontation is interrupted by the arrival of the honored guest, a graceful young woman revealed to be Princess Fiona Ord-Alaglyph, known across the Empire as the Holy Princess. Seika explains her legend to a curious Amu, describing how 15 years ago a priestess gave birth to a child fathered by the emperor himself, a child who carried the blood of both a sacred priestess and the royal line. Fiona is instantly fascinated by Amu, gazing at her red hair and grass-green eyes and murmuring that she looks just like the hero from the fairy tales, exactly what she came hoping to see. She's warm and playful towards Seika, and over the following days she charms everyone with her carefree chatter about wanting to be reborn as a bird or a dragon, delighting when Seika shares the story of befriending the Asterian dragon. Not everyone is warm to him, though, as the family butler Adis still grumbles that he finds the bastard child creepy. To Seika's surprise, his cold and distant mother quietly defends him as a good person, and later even speaks to him kindly for once, asking about the academy and telling him to write home more often. That night, Amu slips into Seika's room, exhausted and wanting company, and the two reaffirm their plans for the future. She declares she'll return to being an adventurer since it's where she belongs, and reminds him of the promise they made in the dungeon to go adventuring together, which he agrees to. Once she leaves, Yuki quietly reminds Seika of his true reason for getting close to the hero, that her power was always meant to be his shield, and he insists he hasn't forgotten. The next day, Fiona asks Seika to escort her through the city market, having deliberately left her guards behind so she can enjoy herself freely. She giggles that it feels like a date as she holds Seika's hand through the crowd, cheerfully ordering GLY to buy her street food while marveling at every ordinary sight, like someone tasting freedom for the first time. She muses aloud about how, in stories, two people grow closer when one saves the other from danger, and almost on cue, a construction accident sends debris toppling toward them. Amu and GLY react instantly to shield her, and a pleased Fiona thanks them, while Seika, who calmly let the others handle it, crafts her a beautiful crystal keepsake on the spot using earth and metal magic. Fiona is overjoyed by the unexpected gift, treasuring it and marveling that she's never received anything like it. That evening, GLY seeks Seika out with a warning about the Holy Princess. He reveals that her title isn't official at all, and that Fiona spread it herself because it sounds good to the people and easy for bards to sing about. He explains she's secretly a shrewd politician who freed herself from a sheltered life and made herself a candidate for the throne, and then drops the biggest secret of all, that she can see the future. Her mother, he says, was no ordinary priestess but the Oracle Priestess, who spoke the very prophecy of the hero and the demon king on the day Fiona was born. GLY admits that neither the Empire nor the princess knows exactly who the hero and demon king are, but given how desperately Fiona wanted to meet Amu, that girl must be the hero, and he can tell Seika already knew. He warns his brother not to get too involved, since Fiona has her eyes fixed on the Empire's future and won't let anyone stand in her way. As Seika absorbs the dangers swirling around him, a princess who can see the future, a prophecy of demons and heroes, and his own carefully hidden secrets, it becomes clear the political game he's been dragged into is about to grow far more dangerous than any monster he's faced. With the visit winding down, Seika spends his time dodging the holy Princess Fiona, who keeps roaming the mansion hoping to chat and share tea with him. He asks Yuki whether her future sight could ever threaten his plans, and Yuki explains that true future sight is something far stronger than ordinary fortune-telling. Seika decides that as long as he doesn't get too involved, she shouldn't be a danger to him. But Fiona finally corners him and invites him to play chess, admitting that no one at court will play her anymore because they always lose. To make it interesting, she proposes a bet that the loser must do one single thing the winner commands, no matter what. As they play, Fiona asks Seika what he thinks the strongest chess piece in the world really is, and he answers that it's the two of them, the politicians who command even the king and can never be killed on the battlefield. Fiona is delighted but offers her own answer, arguing that the true strongest pieces are the nameless masses, the countless ordinary people who vastly outnumber every king and noble. She explains that rulers create nothing and merely take the people's crops as taxes, which is exactly why she's made sure the common folk know her name, choosing to wield the one piece nobody else pays attention to. Seika loses the match badly, but rather than complain that her future sight made it unfair, he simply tells her she's genuinely strong at the game. That answer clearly pleases her, and Fiona reveals she already knew GLY would lose his duel and that the boards would fall on Seika, confirming her power is real. She shares her philosophy on the gift, that even though she can see the future, it always changes, and that realizing heaven assigns no meaning to a person's life is what freed her to decide how she'd live for herself. To earn his trust, she offers to share a weakness, telling a charming childhood story about how she was once terrified of eating stew by the fire, convinced the flour in her belly would bake into bread and swell up inside her. Seika can't help laughing, and Fiona warns him with mock offense that laughing at a princess is usually punished. Turning serious, Fiona shares what she truly wants using a careful metaphor, describing a child playing beside a hidden pit they can't see, destined to fall in, and confessing that she simply wants to save that child. She promises to support whatever Seika has decided to do, and says she'll think carefully about the one command she's earned, while he quietly hopes she'll just forget the whole thing. Meanwhile, far away, the demon party continues its brutal march toward the academy, its captain steadily growing more confident that they can slay the hero. As the break ends, Seika prepares to leave, planning to hide his dream of becoming an adventurer until the last possible moment, and shares warm farewells with his brothers, even joking darkly with GLY about assassins. The long carriage ride home is as miserable as ever for the motion-sick Seika, but it soon takes a dangerous turn. Partway home, the caravan is ambushed by what appears to be a large band of bandits, who strike the decoy carriages first with unusual coordination, marking them at once as trained assassins. GLY springs into action, barking orders to his soldiers and proving he can be a capable officer when it counts, while Seika calmly neutralizes the archers with magnetic magic to pull their arrows off course. He shrugs off their rock spells with a barrier, and when they charge with drawn swords, he binds the entire group with vines in a single motion at Fiona's request, taking them all alive. Amu and Mabel, riding ahead, are almost disappointed they missed the fight. Fiona thanks Seika for capturing the assassins, admitting she intends to use them as evidence against her political enemies, and confirms she foresaw the entire ambush, which is why she brought extra carriages to carry the prisoners. When Seika warns that transporting so many captives is risky and they might break free, Fiona serenely assures him there will be no second attack, declaring that the winds of fate are fixed and that particular future will simply never come to pass. Her eerie confidence makes clear just how powerful and calculating she truly is beneath her cheerful smile. As they part ways near the capital, Fiona expresses genuine regret that she couldn't bring Seika to the imperial court and shares warm goodbyes with Amu and Mabel, who admit they had fun despite themselves. Then, in a quiet, meaningful moment, Fiona looks Seika in the eye and tells him that no matter what happens, she is on his side, and asks him never to forget it. Meanwhile, the demon party reaches the end of its long journey, and its captain reflects on his once isolating power to see the strength of any being, which has finally found its purpose. He rallies his weary comrades with a heartfelt vow that they'll defeat the hero for the sake of all demons and, above all, return home together alive, setting the stage for the deadly clash to come. Back at the academy, Seika is asked to represent the entire student body at the welcome ceremony for the new students, and he accepts. He confides in Yuki that lately he's begun to wonder if dying the way he did made him a coward, and whether he really needed someone else to be the strongest in his place. He decides that from now on he'll act a little more like a normal person, no longer terrified of standing out, though he admits he'll still have to deal with the enemy quietly closing in on the school. That enemy is the demon party, which has finally arrived, and their captain lays out the plan to drive the students toward the central building and slaughter them until the hero is forced to reveal herself. He rallies his comrades with a heartfelt speech, reminding them of their two goals, to kill the hero for the sake of all demons and to return home alive together. His followers share tender, painfully human hopes for the future, as the mighty ogre Mutarev longs for a worthy opponent. One gentle tamer dreams of bringing crop seeds home to his starving village, and another simply wants to avenge his fallen brother. As they enter the city, a strange, unnatural fog rolls in, but the captain presses on with the attack. The tamer Lo and I shares a quiet moment with a friend, confessing that traveling with the captain taught him how weak he truly was and gave him real confidence, and he can't wait to tell his parents he helped defeat the hero. But the moment the demons spread out to begin their massacre, everything goes wrong, as they find themselves wandering empty streets where their attacks pass harmlessly through the people they try to strike. The ogre Mutarev finds a genuinely powerful swordswoman and challenges her with delight, boasting of his resistance to all magic, only to be soundly defeated. The others find nothing but strange talismans scattered on the ground, and one by one, confused and frightened, they're drawn to the same spot, realizing that every single person they saw was somehow unreal. There they finally meet the source of their doom, as Seika reveals that nearly everyone in the city was one of his shikigami, an elaborate illusion built to trap them. He recites an old poem warning to be wary of visitors who come at dusk, since what looks like a harmless child may suddenly bare its fangs, and it dawns on the demons that this unassuming boy is the monster who cornered them. The captain, who can see the strength of any being, is horrified by what he senses, his gift screaming that this student is no human at all, but this generation's most terrible demon king. He realizes with sinking dread that he led his beloved comrades not toward the hero, but straight into the jaws of a monster, and orders a retreat far too late. Seika methodically dismantles the party, killing the boastful Mutarev with a curse against which his magic resistance is useless, then countering the evil eye user Perslaria by summoning a white snake whose deadly gaze stops her heart. He explains that the white snake was once an aged viper, an Ayakashi with a third eye that senses prey by heat, and is immune to the very evil eye Perslaria tried to use. When the gentle tamer Lo Enai desperately tries to befriend the monstrous snake, insisting he's always made friends just by talking, it's hopeless against a creature born of pure human hatred, and he too is cut down. Only the captain, Zormnum, and the devil gull Gannis remain, and the captain makes a final desperate choice, ordering Gannis to flee with his teleportation magic and survive to warn their fellow demons. He buys time with his own life, and as he dies, he begs Gannis to make sure everyone's sacrifice wasn't in vain, revealing the Demon King's identity, Seika Lamprogue, the most terrible Demon King, born in the worst possible way. Gannis escapes by a hair, weeping in despair. With the slaughter finished, Seika calmly notes that it doesn't much matter that one got away, while a shaken Yuki marvels that he unleashed such devastation using nothing but simple talismans. Their conversation is interrupted by Mabel, who arrives in a panic, still believing an assassin from the Merchants Association is hunting her and might hurt the other students. Seika gently calms her, praising her courage for worrying about everyone else before herself, and assures her the threat has already been dealt with, quietly asking her to keep what she saw a secret. The next day, life returns to an eerie normalcy, and Amyu nervously prepares to give a speech, sharing with Ifa the words she wishes she'd said at her own entrance ceremony, about how everyone seeking strength is a comrade working toward the same goal. She has no idea that the demons came to kill her, or that Seika quietly saved her yet again, just as he has so many times before. Seika heads off to give his own speech, keeping the danger hidden to protect his friend's peaceful days. But that peace shatters in an instant when armed knights burst into the academy, declaring themselves the Dirac Knights sent by a marquis, and demand to know if a girl named Amyu is present. When Amyu identifies herself, they coldly accuse her of a grave crime against the Empire, the murder of a demon emissary who visited the academy, and order her immediate arrest. As the knights seize the stunned hero, it becomes horrifyingly clear that the Empire itself has turned against her. As the Dirac Knights drag Amyu away to the capital, Mabel and Ifa are desperate to intervene, but Seika stops them and calmly tells Amyu not to worry, promising she's innocent and will surely be released soon. He then visits the principal for answers and learns the ugly truth that the Empire is deliberately manufacturing a reason to execute the hero. The principal urges him to sit tight and let her apply political pressure, and warns him not to get any ideas. But Seika presses her on whether that pressure can possibly save Amyu before she dies under suspicious circumstances. Back at the dorm, Ifa and Mabel vow to follow him if he decides to mount a rescue. Seika first tries to do things the smart way, summoning his water dragon Mizuchi to test whether he can rely on it, only for the willful Ayakashi to defy him yet again. Yuki gently pleads with him to give up on saving the girl, reminding him that unleashing his power against the Empire's most important people could end exactly like his last life. But Seika's answer is cold and resolute, that there's only one hero, and if anyone sees his power, he'll simply make sure they don't live to tell about it. Yuki realizes that arguing is useless, and with nothing left to say, she watches him mount his dragon and set off, choosing his kindness over his own safety once again. Riding to the Imperial Castle, Seika finds it laughably easy to breach from the air and descends straight into its heart. Archers loose volleys at him, but he scatters every arrow with magnetic magic, seals the gates shut with stone, and brushes aside the swarming guards with white flames and a summoned sickle weasel, cutting a direct path toward the prison cells. Down in her cell, Amyu sadly wonders if she'll ever get to go adventuring with Seika, only to look up and find him standing before her. He tells her they're leaving, but she resists, insisting that escaping will only cause problems for his family and that she trusts the system to free her. So Seika finally tells her the truth she's never known, that she is the hero from the fairy tales, and that she's being killed because those without power always fear and eliminate those who have it. As the shock sinks in, the room suddenly fills with light, and standing there to meet him are his brother Gly and the holy Princess Fiona, who foresaw this exact moment. Rather than fight, Fiona says she's come to answer his questions as a show of good faith, and explains the politics behind it all. Long ago the Empire was small and desperate, and the hero was a symbol of hope, but now both the Empire and the demons have real armies, making a lone hero a relic of the past. The problem, she says, is that the hero carries the potential to start a war simply by existing, and since nobody, not even the demons sending assassins, actually wants that war, both sides would rather see her quietly removed. Fiona adds a painful truth aimed straight at his heart, that Amyu will never grow into the legendary strength of past heroes, precisely because he keeps protecting her, since a hero only gains power by surviving hardship again and again. She asks him for just one thing, to leave for now and trust her to bring Amyu home safely, promising he'll never be punished for tonight. But Seika coldly refuses, asking what reason he could possibly have to trust her. Then Fiona plays her trump card, reminding him of the promise they made over their game of chess, that the loser must do one thing the winner commands. It's a masterful move, revealing that her entire visit, the chess game, and befriending him were all arranged so she could spend this single command in this exact moment. To everyone's surprise, Seika honors the promise, agreeing to let Fiona take charge, and she immediately orders Gly to call off the guards and personally escorts the two to a waiting carriage. Fiona has thought of everything, sending them to the free city of Rachna where she's already arranged safety, money, provisions, and even Amu's sword. Seika apologizes for breaking their chess promise by rescuing Amu first, but Fiona forgives him, and in a final gesture casts a spell that undoes the damage he caused at the castle, so no one will ever know a demon king struck the capital that night. She bids him a warm farewell, certain they'll meet again someday, and lets the two friends escape into the night. As they flee, a confused Amu demands to understand everything, why she was nearly killed, and why being the hero means she can't grow strong, and Seika promises to explain once they're far from the capital, before sheepishly admitting he has no idea how to actually drive a carriage. Back at the palace, Fiona's aide asks about the terrifying being who came, and Fiona reveals the full truth, that Seika is this generation's demon king, and that he protects the hero simply because Amu is dear to him. She explains that she spent her childhood using her power again and again just to meet him, and that she knows he'll always be forced to use his strength to help others, even knowing destruction waits at the end of that road, because that's simply the kind of kind person he is. The story closes as Seika and Amu ride off toward Rachna and a brand new life as adventurers. And so the strongest exorcist, reborn as a magicless failure and revealed at last to be the most terrible demon king, sets off on a new journey, still choosing, again and again, to protect the people he's come to love.